The sun sank behind the blood-red hills of Dustwater, Texas, casting a sky so scorched it seemed as if the land itself smoldered. Shadows stretched long and thin across the cracked, thirsty earth like the fingers of ghosts refusing to let go. It was autumn, 1882, a season where even the breeze felt weary, heavy with dust and the weight of things unspoken. In the heart of that forgotten town, the Dustwater saloon roared with its usual chaos. Boots hammered against warped wooden planks, glasses clinked in uneven rhythm, and the banjo in the corner wheezed out a tune that had long since lost its spirit. At a shadowed table in the back, Elijah Kane sat alone, his fingers loose around a glass of rye, half gone and warm as bathwater. His hat was pulled low, concealing a brow creased by years of regret and war. A few days' worth of stubble darkened his jaw, and his gray eyes that had once stared down the barrel of too many rifles, fixed on nothing but the swirl of liquor in his glass. Then the saloon doors groaned open, letting in the night air thick with dust and the stench of sweat and horses. The rattle of chains followed, sharp and cruel. Conversation faltered. Elijah's eyes lifted, narrowed. A rusty iron cage, no larger than the pig pen, rolled in on a splitter cart dragged by 2 weary mules. Around it, 5 men stood, thick-necked, mean-eyed, their cracked leather coats caked with the road's grime. One man, face red as sunburn and mustache glistening with grease, held a whip that swung lazy at his side. Inside the cage crouched a girl, Apache, no older than 20, barefoot, skin marred with bruises and dirt, a torn dress hanging from her thin frame. Her black hair fell in snarled ropes over her face, but through the tangles her eyes burned, defiant, unbroken, full of a fury deeper than pain. "Step right up, folks," the whip-holder barked, voice slick as oil. "Feast your eyes on the savage, which the Chiricahua caught her myself, hide in the cliffs like the rat she is." The crowd pressed closer, drawn by the promise of cruelty. Someone jeered. A pebble clattered off the cage. The girl didn't flinch, didn't blink, just stared, right at Elijah Kane. "Look at her lips," a voice called, dry as desert bone. The red-faced man kicked the cage. "You want water, witch?" Her lips parted, breath more than words. He spat. "Beasts don't drink from wells. Beasts drink from blood." Laughter echoed. Elijah's chair scraped back. He didn't remember rising, didn't feel his feet cross the floor, only the night wind against his face as he stepped into the street, leaving the saloon and its stink of smoke and sweat behind. Long after the gawkers had wandered off and the cage was left beneath a crooked sycamore behind the stables, Elijah returned. The stars above blinked cold and distant. He moved silent as fog, boots soft on the dirt, in his hand a battered canteen. He found the cage in the shadows. The girl lay curled, but her eyes watched. He knelt, slid the canteen between the bars without a word. The water sloshed, soft as a secret. "Take it," he said, voice low as a breeze. Her hands trembled as she lifted it, drinking deep, as if trying to swallow the stars. When she finished, she set it down, eyes distant, as if seeing something far beyond the walls of Dustwater. "I don't know who you are," Elijah whispered, "but I've seen monsters. I was one. You ain't one." Their eyes met, quiet as prayer. Elijah rose, turned, and disappeared into the dark, leaving only the soft creak of the cage behind him and the mournful cry of a coyote in the distance. Dawn cracked the sky with gold as Elijah reached his ranch. The windmill groaned. Chickens stirred, and the canteen still swung from his saddle, half empty. But peace was short-lived. A low rumble reached his ears, not thunder, but hooves, dozens of them. From the northern hills they came, Apache riders, faces painted, rifles glinting, horses thundering toward the homestead like a storm made flesh. Elijah stepped onto his porch, hands open, no gun drawn. The riders fanned out in a crescent, 20 at least, silent and watching. The leader dismounted, a man scarred from temple to jaw, chest bare save for a necklace of bone and a tattoo over his heart. His name, Elijah would learn, was Takala. Takala planted his spear in the dirt, dust rising around it. "Where is Ka?" His words were cold, sharp as knives. Elijah's heart pounded. "Ka! You gave her water." You saved her. Now you keep her. Bring her or come with us, and you won't return." Elijah shook his head. "She isn't here. I only gave her water. That's all." Takala studied him, then tied a piece of scorched hide to the spear, a serpent coiled around the sun, the mark of the Chiricahua. "One day," Takala said, "that's your warning." And like smoke, the riders vanished into the hills. That night, Dustwater slept uneasy. Elijah waited until the hour was deepest, until even the coyotes fell silent. He rode the back trail, left his horse at the arroyo's edge, and crept toward the camp. His rifle hugged his back, dynamite in his pocket. The cage was there, behind the livery, guarded by drunks and fools. Elijah set his charge under dry straw, lit the fuse, and slipped into the dark. The blast roared, fire tore through the night, and chaos followed. In confusion, Elijah ran to the cage, breath ragged, heart racing. "Ka!" he whispered, jamming a crowbar through the lock. She stared, unsure she was dreaming. "I'm getting you out," he said. With a crack, the lock snapped. "Come on. Can you walk?" And so began the night Elijah Kane defied fate, the law, and the ghosts that haunted the red hills of Dustwater. She tried to stand, but her legs buckled beneath her, strength drained by hunger, thirst, and days of captivity. Without hesitation, Elijah bent down and gathered her into his arms. Her body was feather-light, trembling against him as he carried her through the smoke and confusion. They were nearly clear of the chaos, the flames crackling behind them, when a gunshot split the night. Elijah staggered, pain tearing through his right shoulder like a hot knife. His knees hit the dirt, and Ka tumbled from his grasp, gasping as she fell. A figure burst from the shadows, a man, wild-eyed and furious, revolver raised high, spit flying from his mouth. "You think you can steal my property?" he bellowed, voice raw with rage. Elijah tried to lift his weapon, but his arm refused. Before he could act, Ka sprang, not away, but toward the danger. She lunged at the man, catching his wrist in midair. The gun roared, the bullet slicing the night inches from her head. With a cry, she twisted his arm hard, the crack of bone loud beneath the screams and flames. Her elbow slammed into his throat, cutting off his breath. As he choked and stumbled, she wrenched a revolver from his hand, spun, and fired. The man dropped to his knees, gasping, eyes wide. The gun fell from Ka's trembling hands. She stared at it, then at Elijah, whose breath came shallow as he clutched his bleeding shoulder. "You all right?" he rasped. She nodded at once, her face pale but fierce. "Good," he said, forcing a grim smile through the pain. "Let's get the hell out of here." They fled into the night, stumbling to the creek bed, the cold water washing blood from their skin as they moved. Every step was a battle, Elijah leaning on Ka driven by fury and something deeper, the fire of survival. Her bare feet left smears of blood in the mud, and his coat clung heavy with his own. But they did not stop. When dawn painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, the outline of Elijah's ranch rose before them like salvation. They stumbled into the barn, collapsing in the hay. Dust floated around them, soft as ash. Elijah leaned against a post, his face pale, his shirt soaked in blood. Ka sank beside him, silent, breathing hard. Without a word, she tore a strip from his sleeve and began tending the wound, her hand steady, movement sure. "Where'd you learn that?" he muttered, wincing. "From my mother," she said softly, the first words she'd spoken that weren't whispers. Elijah studied her, the way her bruised face still held that unbreakable pride. "You saved me," he said. She looked down at her hands. "You first." A faint chuckle escaped him, but it twisted into a groan of pain. "Fair enough." She tied off the bandage, then leaned back against the barn wall. For a moment, they just sat, breathing, hearts pounding in rhythm. Slowly, Elijah reached out. Not to grab, not to hold, just to touch her hand, his fingers brushing hers with quiet intent. Ka didn't pull away. Instead, her fingers closed over his, firm, certain. Their eyes met in that fragile space between exhaustion and hope, and in that silent connection, something passed between them. Not just trust. Something stronger. A spark in the darkness. Life fragile and fierce. "We'll get through this," Elijah whispered, voice hoarse with pain and promise. "I swear it." Ka's eyes shone, not with tears, but with fire. "I believe you," she said. By midday, Elijah lay on a cot inside his cabin, stripped to the waist, his shoulder wrapped in cloth-soaked red. Sweat beaded on his brow, fever creeping in. The room smelled of pine smoke, and beneath it, something bitter and strange, earthy, sharp, almost sweet. Ka stood over him, grinding leaves in a stone mortar, her sleeves rolled up, hair braided loose down her back. Her hands worked with practiced care, slow and sure. Elijah shifted, grimacing. "That smell gonna heal me or kill me?" Ka glanced at him, expression unreadable. "It will stop the fever." He managed a grin. "Suppose I owe you another one." "You do." She dipped a cloth into the mixture and pressed it gently to his wound. He sucked in a breath, but didn't pull away. "I've seen wounds like this," Ka said, voice soft, distant. "On my brothers, my uncles, the ones who never came back." Elijah watched her. Were they soldiers? Warriors? Some fought Mexicans. Some fought Americans. Some fought each other. Her voice grew quieter. "And your father?" She stilled, cloth resting on the basin's edge. "My father wasn't a fighter. He was a healer, a dream walker, a shaman." Elijah said nothing, sensing the weight of her words. "I was meant to follow him, to carry his visions, his medicine." Her voice hardened. "But some men believe no woman should have that power. When he died, there were whispers, jealousy. They betrayed me. My own cousin showed the white men where I hid. They came for me before the sun rose." Elijah swore under his breath. Ka moved to the window, pulling the curtain aside just enough to glimpse the horizon, then let it fall. "They wanted me gone, forgotten, but the spirits did not forget. And now my people are watching." Elijah stared at his hands, stained with blood, both his and others. "I fought in a war too," he said. "Not this one. The other. Blue coats, gray coats. I wore gray. I killed men, white, black, Mexican, Apache, Comanche. I don't even know how many. I was good at it." Ka said nothing, only listened. "Afterward, I tried to forget, tried to farm, tried to drink. Nothing worked. I hated what I'd become." The silence between them grew heavy. Ka came to him then, knelt at his side, and placed a salve bowl on the floor. She met his gaze, unflinching. "Maybe you were a monster," she said. Elijah flinched. "But last night, you saved someone. Maybe two someones." Her hand hovered near his, close enough to feel the warmth between them. "You may have killed," she said softly, "but last night you saved." Their eyes locked. No embrace. No kiss. Just that moment, heavy with truth. "I didn't think anyone could say that to me," Elijah whispered. "I didn't think anyone would give me water," she said. He laughed, but it caught on sorrow. Outside, the wind stirred the dust. Inside, the silence no longer felt empty. By mid-morning, word had spread. Dustwater's greatest currency was gossip, and a boy had seen her, the Apache girl, drawing water behind Elijah's barn. The news reached the saloon within the hour. Sheriff Merton and 5 militiamen rode out, faces grim, no patience for explanations. Elijah saw them crest the hill, and a coldness filled him deep in fear. "Elijah," the sheriff called as he dismounted. "Don't do anything foolish. Hand her over." "She's not a prisoner," Elijah said, voice steady. "She's my guest." "Guest?" a man scoffed. "You sheltering savages now?" "She's not a savage. She deserves better than a cage." Merton rested his hand on his gun. "Harboring a hostile makes you a traitor. Bring her out. Now." "No." Elijah raised his rifle. "You'll have to come take her." The first shot cracked like thunder. Elijah fired back, hitting a rider's leg. Splinters flew as bullets tore into the porch. Inside, Ka grabbed a shotgun. "Out the back." Elijah shouted, blood soaking his shirt from a graze. They ran, gunfire snapping around them. Horses screamed, which shattered. Ka led him to a ravine he'd forgotten. They slid down, breathless, but Ryder appeared. Avery Dunn, once his comrade, rifle aimed. Elijah, Avery cried. What the hell are you doing? Don't. Elijah pleaded, gun raised. Let us go. I can't, Avery said, voice breaking. They'll kill me. The moment stretched thin as glass. Then Elijah fired. Avery fell. Elijah stood, stunned. Ka grabbed his arm. We have to go. And they vanished into the hills. Fugitives to both white men and Apache. No longer part of any nation, only each other's. They rode 3 nights through canyons that whisper with old blood, over ridges no white man dared. On the 4th night, they reached a hollow hidden in Sierra Blanca's shadow. Watchers appeared, weapons ready. Ka whispered swift, firm words. The weapons lowered. They passed. The camp glowed with firelight, murmured prayers, and coyote song. Takala stepped out, scar gleaming. You brought him here? He saved my life. He's the reason you needed saving. If you want to kill me, Elijah said, do it. Not yet, Takala said. They let him stay, watched him with wary eyes. Elijah healed. Ka brought him food, spoke little but stayed near. He learned, through children's songs, Ka's soft translations, the way the land spoke if you listened. And for the first time in years, Elijah Kane stopped reaching for the bottle. One night, beneath stars thick as dust, Ka sat beside him. You learn fast, she said. I watch, he answered. And in the hush of the desert, the bond between them deepened. Quiet as the wind, strong as the land itself. I listen, Elijah replied, his voice low, thoughtful. Something I should have done a long time ago. Kaya studied him, her brow furrowed, as if searching his face for truth. And you think this will be enough? That listening, learning, will make them accept you? No, he said, shaking his head slowly. But it might be enough for me to finally accept myself. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was a quiet understanding, the kind that settles between 2 souls who have nothing left to hide. Kaya reached into the fold of her coat and unrolled a strip of worn leather. The edges were frayed, the surface brittle with age, and dark ink traced faded lines and symbols. She spread it between them, the firelight flickering across its surface. This, she whispered, was hidden by my father before he died. Elijah leaned in, his fingers tracing the strange marks. It's a map. More than that, Kaya said, her eyes reflecting the flames. It shows the sacred sites, the water paths and safe trails meant to bring the clans back together. My father dreamed of unity, but after he was gone, no one believed. They fought among themselves. My cousin wanted war. I want peace. I want us to be whole again. Elijah's fingers hovered over the lines, feeling their weight. You've shown this to your people? Only to Okala. But he does not trust it, or me. If the white men find it, they will destroy it, and us with it. Elijah lifted his eyes to hers, steady and fierce. Then we protect it, and we use it. Kaya nodded, determination sharpening her features. There's a group of settlers moving east, armed, paid by railroad men. They mean to take the valley and wipe out the Chiricahua, 30 or more. They move at night. Elijah leaned back, gaze darkening. We'll need to outthink them, not outrun them. Kaya placed a map into his hands, firm, trusting. Then think fast, soldier. We ride at dawn. The fire crackled between them, casting long shadows. In that moment, the lines that had divided their worlds faded. Not white or Apache, not soldier or shaman's daughter. Just 2 souls standing together on the edge of history, ready to fight not for revenge, but for a future. Dawn broke over the Sierra Blanca in streaks of fire and gold. Elijah stood before gathered warriors, dust clinging to his coat, exhaustion carved deep into his face, but his eyes clear with purpose. The camp moved with quiet precision now, transformed under his guidance. His voice was spare, but his hand-drawn plans on deer hide, his sharp gestures, spoke louder than words. We don't meet them head-on, he said to Tokala, pointing at a jagged ridge. We split, half circles wide, draw their fire. The rest of us slip through the ravine, low, quiet, fast. Tech will watch them, wary but listening. And if they expect that, they won't. Not from Apache. Elijah allowed a ghost of smile, but they would from a Confederate. Kaya crouched nearby, the map open on her lap. They expect fear. We'll give them ghosts. By mid-morning, the warriors had melted into the land. Smoke, shadow, stone. Kaya climbed alone to the eastern crest. There, she lit a fire beneath an overhang, feeding it dry sage and pine. Smoke rose thick, dark, spiraling toward the sky. 3 short bursts, 1 long. Across the valley, distant columns of smoke answered. The mountain had awakened. By afternoon, the settlers entered the gulch. 30 riders, eyes hard, guns ready. That's when Elijah's decoy team struck. Thunder across the ridge, rifles cracking, drawing the enemy into the trap. The hired guns chased, cursing, blind with fury. But when they reached the rocky pass, there was nothing there. From behind, from the shadows of the ravine, the true attack came. The Apache fell upon them like a storm. War cries echoed, horses reared, bullets screamed wild. The settlers fought, but panic had already taken hold. Amidst it all, Elijah saw a boy, no more than 10, huddled beneath a supply wagon, his small hands over his ears, blonde hair caked with dust and blood. Without thinking, Elijah charged the gunfire, weaving between the chaos. A bullet tore across his leg. Another sliced his arm. Still, he reached the boy, yanked him free. "Come on, kid," he grunted, lifting him, tucking him under one arm as they fled toward the trees. A settler raised his rifle, aimed, then froze, confusion in his eyes. That hesitation saved them. Elijah dug behind cover. Kaya appeared, breath ragged, knife in hand. "You're insane," she hissed, checking his wounds. "I saw him. I couldn't leave him." The boy clung to Elijah, shaking, silent. Kaya nodded, her fury softening. Across the field, guns lowered. A rider with a scar, down his cheek, stepped forward. "That's my nephew," he said, voice breaking. Elijah nodded. "He's safe." A long, thick silence followed. Then someone shouted, "Hold your fire." The shooting stopped. Kaya stepped out beside Elijah, hands empty, eyes clear. Together they stood, bloodied, side by side. Elijah's voice shook. "You all right?" Kaya nodded. Without thought, he drew her into his arms. They stood in the heart of the battlefield. The world hushed around them. "It's over," he breathed. Kaya's voice was steady. "No, it's just beginning." For the first time in his life, Elijah Kane felt peace. Not because he'd survived, but because he'd found something worth dying for. 6 months passed, and the land between Dustwater and the Chiricahua Mountains had changed. No flags claimed it. No lines divided it. The maps left it blank, too wild, too free. But in that emptiness rose Kane's Crossing, a simple trading post where river met foothill. Cedar walls, a stone chimney, a carved sign above the door. Chickens roamed the yard. Children ran barefoot in the dust. No guns allowed. Carved in English, Spanish, Apache on the post front beam. Elijah moved slower now. The scar on his shoulder ached in the rain. But his eyes were clear, and beside him stood Kaya, not as fugitive, not as guest, but as his wife. No church had blessed them. No papers sealed their bond. Just a fire beneath the moon, hands clasped, promises whispered in 2 tongues. "You are my life's one." Kaya taught the children, Apache, Mexican, settlers' kids, language, stories, the old ways. Elijah taught planting by the moon, trading fair, reading contracts. Together, they built irrigation ditches, bridges of wood and trust. They didn't live between 2 worlds. They lived as the bridge itself. One afternoon, as the sun sank low, a young merchant stopped at Kane's Crossing. He lingered after trading, curious. "You built this?" he asked, nodding at the post, the garden, the well. Elijah wiped his hands. "Built it with a lot of help. The earth did the rest." "But why here?" the boy asked. "This land's not safe. Nobody belongs to it." Elijah looked toward the well. Kaya stood there, laughing with two girls, silver beads glinting in her braid. The light made her glow like copper flame. Because once, Elijah said, I thought the world was only battle lines, north and south, white and red, kill or be killed. His gaze softened. But one night, I gave water to a girl in cage, and she gave me something I'd lost. What's that? The boy asked. A life worth living. The boy nodded slowly, then tipped his hat and moved on. Elijah leaned against the post, breathing in cedar smoke and wild sage. Kaya came to him, slipped her hand into his, and rested her head on his shoulder. They watched the sun set in silence, the sky burning orange, then purple. The birds wheeled above the cottonwoods, free as the land itself. You ever think it'd be like this? Elijah whispered. Kaya smiled, eyes warm. Never, but I dreamed it. Elijah chuckled, kissed her forehead. Maybe I did too. And now, Kaya said softly, we just live it. Behind them, children's laughter filled the air. Before them, the horizon stretched, not as a border, but as a promise. Because in the harshest lands, something soft can still take root. In a place where bullets spoke louder than promises, one man dared offer water. And from that small act, love bloomed. Not born of conquest, but of courage. The wildest thing in the West was never the gun. It was a heart that dared to love across a line drawn in blood.